Well, you know it's not an official Jamie Seh appearance on Jeff Allen Sports Talk unless we bring in Springsteen.
The boss. Thank you.
Of
Thank
course.
you very much.
Always have to do that for you. Jamie Seh of WKMG News 6 joining us to talk about some recent local news, mostly involving UCF, where it's been a lot of news here of late. And we're going to start discussing UCF basketball at the Crown Tournament, where they played out in Vegas, got to play for a little scratch, and
They did.
all that good stuff.
I thought they performed well. I thought they presented themselves well. They fought back. Darius Johnson had a great tournament. It was unfortunate that he wasn't at 100% in that final game. But, he had career games throughout. So I'm really happy for him because he's a guy who has stuck with UCF for a number of years, was a quiet leader, reliable leader. And he came through in so many big time moments, especially in the postseason. And he played like he didn't want his college basketball career to end. And you have to respect that. Yeah,
absolutely. And of course, obviously Twitter brings good and bad. And of course, I saw a lot of chirping about, look how much better a team they are without Keyshawn Hall. I don't necessarily look at it that way because, the guy was the leading scorer on the team for a good reason. But I just looked at this band of brothers kind of sucked it up and pulled each other up in this, as I thought.
Absolutely. I thought Keyshawn Hall was a terrific representative of UCF all season. Here he is. He hadn't been with the team super long, and he really wanted to win for the name on his jersey. You could hear it in his post-game press conferences. I think he enjoyed the opportunity to play against the Big 12 and play with those guys. Listen, and he earned that money. Let's face it. The way we are in college sports right now, you go out and you earn it, and he did. So, you can't fault the guy for going to and committing to Auburn, one of the best teams in the country. He proved himself throughout to UCF's benefit. Had he been on the team throughout the Crown, maybe they win it. I tend to stay away from posting things on Twitter. I follow it for my job, and sometimes I'll tweet something or tweet something out, but I try and stay a little bit more positive. So, but yeah, UCF did band together with what they had, because it's not like Keyshawn Hall was the only person missing from the team that had been with them for a while. This was a team that came in there basically with 8 players, right? I think they went 8 deep and they handled themselves well and clearly had something to play for. Part of it was the NIL package, and we don't know how that's going to be split up. But part of it was, not wanting the season to end and guys having new roles, guys having bigger roles because Keyshawn wasn't there, because some of the other guys who had left. And then some of those guys who played, are in the portal, but they stuck with UCF, and Coach Dawkins, allowed them to keep playing. So, I thought UCF really represented itself well.
Yeah. And of course, obviously Darius had, played out of his mind and did some terrific things. I find it interesting. I almost kind of want to make the correlation that, because obviously the money was a kind of a motivating factor. We'd be foolish not to believe that. And I'm wondering, so if UCF put more monetary resources into basketball, what would happen?
Yeah, I think Johnny Dawkins can coach. I think Johnny Dawkins can motivate players and recruit good players. I really do. He's in a time where, let's face it, Jeff, you and I have talked about this. UCF has just been through year 2 of the Big 12. It's a big step up from where they were. A big step up. So, they're competing against the best, against other teams that have more money, bigger resources. So yeah, I mean, what would happen if they invested more in basketball? It's hard. It's hard right now. It's hard to think that athletic departments have to choose one sport over another. Your revenue, your money makers are football, and then basketball, and then you have all the other sports. But it's just a new time, and UCF again is a young, relative to the schools that they're competing against, is a young athletic department. I mean, it's been D1 for only a certain amount of time, so it doesn't have those gigantic donors like a T. Boone Pickens or the Yellowwood guy there in Alabama, who funds Auburn and all these other programs. So, yeah, I think, and I think UCF can make the investment with interest in marketing, ticket sales. If you want the basketball team to do well, buy tickets and go to their games.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned Johnny Dawkins, and of course, it looks like unless something changes, he's going to kind of go into a lame duck season.
Yeah.
As the head coach, which also poses challenges too, because that's got to be a little bit of a challenge on the recruiting trail, I would imagine.
Absolutely. Yeah. What recruits know that he might only be there for a year, but recruits are also probably approaching it. Well, I'm only going to be here for a year. I don't know where my next school will be. I don't know if I'll be here multiple years because I can transfer out. So maybe that won't be as big of a deal. It might be like, well, I like Coach Dawkins. I'll go along with him for this year, see what happens, play in the Big 12, get more exposure in the Big 12. If I play well against the Big 12, maybe I can be the next Keyshawn Hall and cash in and go someplace else. I think Johnny will be as motivated as ever, to see what he can do in year 3. And if this is his final year, I'm always going to really like and appreciate Johnny Dawkins and respect him. Perhaps it is time for a change. You never know what the next person will be. I never, Johnny hasn't had losing seasons here at UCF. Transitioning to the Big 12, the SEC was the best basketball conference in the country this year, but I think the Big 12 was probably the second best. Big 10 was very good and competitive, but the Big 12 is the Big 12. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not one to say that a change should be made, but perhaps it will be time when Johnny's this year is over. And we'll
he might say, I'm kind of not liking where this thing is going either, as far as how you have to coach now.
Right, exactly. Maybe Johnny is looking for a fresh start, but I think he really likes it here. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So give me your thoughts on the Crown. So, this is a brand new tournament. Obviously, it had the payday aspects of it. They had Vegas. It didn't cost the schools money out of their budget to go, which is to me, that's a huge win.
Yeah. I liked it. I like the fact that, I always like the NIT too. I like as much postseason basketball as you can get. I like the NIT for its tradition and the fact that the championship and the semis are played at Madison Square Garden. And, it truly is the mecca of basketball, Madison Square Garden. But I like the outside of the box thinking of the college basketball Crown. We've seen different third tier postseason basketball tournaments, the College Basketball Invitational, which is no longer around, and some others. But I like the college basketball Crown idea. Put it in Vegas. I mean, so many things are changing, right, with college sports. Wagering on them is acceptable now, except for athletes and everything like that. But I mean, we've seen, the FanDuels and the DraftKings and the Caesar Sportsbooks and all the sponsorships that are coming up. I like the fact that it's in Vegas. I like the idea that the prize money is as a name, image, and likeness contract. I like the partnership with Fox Sports. I like the investors behind it. There's some money behind this tournament that perhaps makes it survivable. You know, we haven't seen that with some of these other tournaments. I'm not sure if it can challenge the NIT, but I think the fact that these games are on Fox Network and Fox Sports 1, I think that helps a lot too. I liked, you know, the one thing that I liked tuning in. And to be honest with you, the only games I watched were the ones that UCF was playing in. You know, I wouldn't have watched otherwise, but I liked tuning in and seing Tim Brando on the call.
Yep.
And Jim Jackson as an analyst, and you know, some of these big time announcers. You know, Fox
Gus
put
Johnson,
Gus Johnson. I right, like who doesn't love that? Like, so I really like that idea, and then I liked the idea of just inviting Power 4 schools. Because, you know, it's not competing with the NCAA tournament, you know, where, you know, small Cinderella schools have a chance at emerging, right? It's not about that. But I like seeing UCF take on Villanova. That was really cool. Like, I like those ideas.
Yeah, good out of conference opportunities. I actually had Tim Brando on my show a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, awesome.
And one of the best things he said, as far as making a point about this tournament, was it was brilliant scheduling too, dropping it right in the middle of the NCAA tournament when there was no action going on. They got to own the floor.
They did, yeah. They didn't make it a Thursday Saturday model, a Friday Sunday model. You know, I thought it was perfect. You know, it was kind of neat on Sunday. It's like, okay. I like the fact that they had the semifinals on Saturday and the finals the next day on Sunday. You know, they scheduled the semis in the afternoon as the lead up to, you know, before the Final Four, although UCF's game overlapped with the Gator game on Saturday. But it was kind of neat. It's like, okay, on Sunday, you go from the women's championship game to, if you want to watch it, the college basketball crown championship. You know, we just get a huge dose of college basketball. So I thought the scheduling was really strong too.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that it was on Fox Sports 1 and on Fox Network for the weekend.
Some good exclusivity there for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I also have a theory too, because you know I'm with you. I like the NIT. I think the NIT is going to eventually, especially if they do expand the NCAA tournament, I think the NIT is probably going to be your mid-major championship at some point. I think I could see that happening down the road. And
I think that would be a great niche for those schools, you know, for them to own it. Will it drive ratings? We don't know. I mean, there's got to be some really interesting storylines, but you know, it's an opportunity for those players at mid-majors to grab attention and get an opportunity elsewhere, which is very sad because, you know, as a sports fan, we like rooting for guys for a number of years, but the reality is, you know, scholarships are 1-year contracts now.
Yeah. It has changed mightily. Yeah. That's for sure. All right. Other UCF football news I wanted to talk about with you was, of course, spring camp. And, okay, tell me, is there anything you actually can glean when you go to spring camp?
No, they're not saying much. We don't know who's playing great. We don't know who's playing poorly. I mean, specifics, no. You know, I think, you know, there have been, I think, 2 media opportunities with Scott Frost so far, one on day one, and then another after the open practice. So it's tough to glean stuff in terms of what's going on and who's playing well. But, you know, I mean, Scott has discussed, you know, the effort, the expectation of great effort, that it's there some of the time, but not all the time. And they've got to band that together. And he talked about rebuilding a culture, which is an interesting insinuation, meaning that maybe that culture wasn't there last year under the past leadership. So those are some things, but, you know, I think everybody's going to be interested in who the quarterback is. And we had a chance on, what day was it? It was Thursday, that all the quarterbacks were available to the media. after practice, and they've got some great personalities. And, to see these guys physically up close, they're impressive. And from that, can we glean who's going to be the starter? No. So I'm not sure. And, there's not going to be a spring game. Mistakes have been made throughout camp and everything like that. So I'm not sure how much we can glean from spring camp, but it's interesting hearing from the newcomers, the new quarterbacks, Cam Fancher and Taven Jackson, and what they like, why they came here, what they're doing, what the quarterback room is like. But it's, just like a lot of college quarterback competitions, we hear, everybody's supporting each other. The competition is just going to make the whole position better. But, these guys came here to be the starter. So we'll see how that plays out. But really, I'm not sure how much we can glean from it. You can see the size of these guys. You can see the numbers, but there's 40 new players or so or more. So it's hard to tell.
All right. So from this perspective, what kind of vibe do you get compared to last season? Is there any vibe check that you can make there that is different, better, worse?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure, just because Scott Frost and Gus Malzahn are very different. Gus was really good at saying the right things, and I don't know. I always felt that his players said all the right things, in practice, and were fired up. Especially this time of year. I always felt like spring, was a new time, that they were frustrated a year ago, and they emphasized that, but they weren't able to translate that on the field in plays and wins. Scott, I feel like maybe it's a little more muted, maybe it's more business-like, workman-like, we're going to do our talking on the field and not so much like rah, we're gonna get this thing to where it needs to be. He's not making those promises. He's taking a very methodical approach. And I try and remember what it was like in 2016 when he first took over, and try and compare what it was like back then to now. And it's difficult for me to remember. I was here, and I covered it a lot. I probably was at more spring practices back then in 2016 than I am now. Just because there was a great energy when he replaced George O'Leary, because it was so different after, 10 years of Coach O'Leary. And then you have this new young guy come in. But, Scott kind of keeps things close to the vest. That's what I do remember about him in his first 2 years. He got more comfortable with the media and sharing things in year 2 than he was in year 1, but he was not one to make promises about anything and say, yeah, we're going to fight and we're going to battle and we have a chip on our shoulder. He hasn't said anything like that, because I really believe he's trying to see what he has. And things are so different. He really had, I feel like he had an empty canvas when he took over in 2016, but with good returning players. He inherited a roster of really good players that were disciplined under O'Leary, and they were coming back. He had the Griffin twins. He had Justin Holman, the starting quarterback, coming back. He had I think Clayton Geathers, and he had some really good players.
Good offensive line. Yeah. All that good stuff.
Yeah. Some unsung heroes. Now, guys have transferred out. Guys may have joined the program a year ago. And we will say, O'Leary ran a really disciplined program back then.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what Gus's system was like, if it was quite that way. So, what kind of culture has Scott inherited? And I don't want to disparage Gus at all, because I liked him, and I liked his energy, and I liked his rah-rah enthusiasm. And And, I didn't see the inner workings of his program, so I don't know if discipline and, was a major issue or anything, but I think Scott's trying to instill that. So yeah, it's just interesting. But Scott is somebody who plays things close to the vest and doesn't give away a lot.
Yeah, I would say Scott Frost Part 1, the program had hit a basic rock bottom.
Right.
And of course, he comes in with an offense that wasn't 3 yards in a cloud of dust that George ran. So the inheritance of the second time around, it's a little bit of a bottom falling out just because, we didn't like the taste of how that last season went.
Yeah.
And you mentioned, because now players can come and go as they please. At least Scott didn't have that problem the first time around.
Right.
People were on scholarship, they weren't running out the door.
Yeah, he doesn't have to worry about kids transferring after spring practice. Right? I mean, kids can, once spring is done, these kids that he's working with can leave. So, so he, back then, he didn't have to worry about that. He's got to probably constantly worry about his roster, every day, but also trying to build these guys and come up with the schemes that will fit the talent that he's got. So it's such a different time.
It so certainly is. And of course, you mentioned there's no spring game, and UCF's not the only school that's begging out of that. And me personally, I never really cared for spring games. Are the same. You don't glean. There's nothing from that will translate to what happens in September.
No, I agree. I agree. I think spring games. I think spring games, when they're played as games, they're fun. Gus tried to do some different things, a half of football and then some contests to, put his players out there and focus on their personalities, which was a lot of fun. I feel like it's unfortunate that the results were there because I think Gus tried to do different things to entertain the fans and keep them engaged. I really do. He would make appearances. He would do things different. He allowed UCF to have fun with him on social media. So anyway, but back to the spring game. So he implemented some things, that were different. But
lineman catching punts is kind of fun.
Exactly. But I kind of like the spring games just because it's such a long off season for football and we don't get any games. It's just kind of neat. I don't know. I like watching the ball being thrown around. Even if it's team versus team, black versus gold, I like watching the ball being thrown around. I like guys running around the field. They're not making violent tackles or anything like that. I always kind of liked spring football. And, it just meant that, all right, we're getting there. We're getting towards the season. I mean, but yeah, I'm not going to, watch it with a critical eye and say, oh, this guy's going to be really good. I can say, I remember a spring game. Maybe it might've been Gus's first year when they did play a spring game. And it was RJ Harvey's first year here after he had transferred, and he had a really good spring game. And I was like, oh, there's RJ Harvey. I remember him from Edgewater because I would go shoot his games at Edgewater. I'm like, oh, wow, RJ's doing some good things in spring. And unfortunately, later on, that's the year that he hurt his knee.
Right.
So he was out. So that was a bummer. But it was like, okay, all right, there's RJ. To me, it helps me identify some of the guys that I want to pay attention to coming up in the fall. I mean, can I say, oh, this team's going to be good and this is going to be weakness? No, but to me, like I like it because I can identify some of these guys.
Yeah. And at least with a little spring camp, it gives us a reason to talk football because it's always good to talk football. No matter
it really
what.
is.
Yeah. So now that we're kind of hitting summertime, what's on your sports calendar? What's the things you're looking forward to?
Well, we'll see how the Magic do. Coming up, their regular season ends this week. I think it ends on Sunday. And then they'll have a play-in game. and hopefully they win their play-in game so they can go get a playoff series. Probably I think it'll be against Boston. The way it seems to be shaping out, it could be against Cleveland. So we'll see. So that's one thing. That's kind of the immediate thing that's coming up this month. Orlando City, Orlando Pride. The Orlando Pride might not lose a match again. So that's exciting. We've got soccer, and something that's coming up in June, which is really exciting, is the Club World Cup. It's not the FIFA World Cup where all the nations come together. We're not hosting that, but Orlando, Camping World, and Ironco Stadium are hosting some matches in the Club World Cup. So some of the teams that are coming are world famous, like Manchester City is playing here.
Okay.
Flamengo from Brazil is playing here. I think Juventus is another team that's playing here. So these are strong South American and European clubs that are coming to play here. So I'm expecting the environments to be really excited. And I think that's really cool. So that's something that's coming up in June. And then, in July is media days for the conferences for football. So and then August starts and then we're into college football. So, me and my team, we kind of take a little bit of a breather this time of year when the Magic finish up, but we'll still be covering a lot of soccer. But those are the things that I'm looking forward to. And I mean, it's just everything goes by so quickly. It feels like I can't believe, we're approaching mid-April already. And, March Madness makes March go by so quickly. And, we've got the Masters coming up. So it's like, okay, here we are. So things happen fast, and we're always pretty busy with something. It's a little bit slower in terms of regular things coming up when the Magic are done. But, there's always something. But I think there's a lot of things to be excited about, in Orlando coming up, but the Magic are going to be the big one. Club World Cup, Orlando City, Orlando Pride, and then college football practice. And I think, when camp opens in August, there's going to be a lot more buzz about UCF football, and we'll cover it harder. We've been going to the practice and going to the media availabilities. We're limited in what we can see. You go to a spring practice and they let the media watch for about 15 minutes. A lot of it's stretching, but so nothing like concrete. So you can't get anything from it. But then we meet the guys and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm looking forward to August with camp starting, and then the cycle begins again.
We're dying to know who the best stretcher on the team is.
I know. Who's the most flexible?
Well, I haven't had a chance to talk to you since the end of the NFL season. I know another tough way to end the season for the Buffalo Bills, your Bills.
Yeah.
But, going into last season, the expectations were a lot less.
They were.
They proved a lot wrong.
Yeah, they were. I mean, because, they let Stephon Diggs go. So it's like, okay, who's going to be the number one receiver? They really didn't have a number one receiver. Khalil Shakir stepped up and he got a new contract. They did it by committee. The person that truly emerged on offense was James Cook, the running back. I mean, he was huge. Hopefully they can come to an agreement on a contract with him during this season, and there's no discord between Cook and the team. That's got me a little concerned, but he really stepped up. There was some, we've re-signed, the Bills have re-signed some of their veteran key defensive players. So we'll see, but yeah, no, I think the buzz was about the Dolphins coming into the season, and the Bills had a great year, and Josh Allen was tremendous. And Lamar Jackson could have been the MVP, and I would have been fine with it. But Josh Allen was amazing. Cut way back on his turnovers. Did everything. So I mean, he had a huge season. So it's with Josh, there's always a window.
Yeah, there definitely is. I would say, hey, at least you feel like you can contend, which is what every
yes.
fan wants to feel about their team.
Yes, exactly. Like I'll go into this season with optimism, but guarded and know that, I think the important thing is you just enjoy every victory because they're not easy, and you never know, and hopefully they just make a few more plays. They're just always a few plays away from the Super Bowl, just a few plays away, and hopefully this is the year coming up that they make them, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and it's okay to say we on this show. I have no issue
Yeah.
with that. It's all right.
Yeah. So,
all right, before you run, quick plugs for the work you and your team are doing at WKMG.
Well, I appreciate that, Jeff. So my team is myself, Ryan Welch, and Nathaniel Rivas, and we all work really hard and love what we do and appreciate our viewers and people who tune in. You can watch us at 6 and 11 every day, Monday through Sunday, but then we also have our half-hour sports show After the Whistle every Saturday night at 11:30. This week, it's interesting because last week's featured interview was with Mackenzie Milton, so it was really nice catching up with him for about 10 minutes. This week, I believe I'm talking to the president of FIFA. He is in town this week, and I will have a one-on-one interview with the president of FIFA talking about the Club World Cup coming up.
That's awesome. Well,
yeah,
my favorite local sportscaster, Jamie Seh.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
My favorite sports podcaster, Jeff Allen.
Bless your heart. Very nice of you to say. Jamie, as always, thanks for being on.
Thank you, Jeff.